Hello, my name is Sean Sperry, and in this short video what I'm going to do is do a demo and an overview of setting up role-based access control in IBM Spectrum Protect Plus online services for Microsoft 365. And that role-based access control is going to be driven by the use of these containers in the product. Containers are set up and created and assigned users in the product in the so-called scan profiles. Now, a scan profile is what goes into your Microsoft 365 instance, picks a user that is available for backup, and then assigns it to Spectrum Protect Plus for online services, and then puts it in a container. Now, these scan profiles can be really simple, and an example would be this so-called express mode. So for instance, this express mode just goes out and picks up all users in an instance and puts the backups in the default container. But when you use this advanced mode, what you can do is go out there and define these custom rules for which container a user gets put in when he gets pulled into Spectrum Protect Plus for online services. The way these rules work is they have a selection criterion, which is usually just some sort of attribute on the user. And as you can see here, for instance, you might use department and have it equal to R&D. So in this case, the rule will match any user whose department is R&D and pick him up in the scan profile. Now, the next thing you do in this profile is take that user and based on where he was picked up and what rule he used, assign him to a particular container. So here you can see there's a container called Department RMB, and the scan profile picked up these three users and stuck their backup data into this container called Department R&D. Now, just as an FYI, these containers are automatically generated when defined in the rule. You don't have to create them in advance. So you'll see when you create the rule, pick the selection criterion, pick a container, and run the rule, the container will automatically get generated after the rule is run. Now, the reason I'm going through all of this is because, as we're going to see in the next demo and looking at my configuration, these containers are critical in setting up role-based access control. So what you can do is, for instance, give a particular user or set of users access to restore only the data in this department R&D container. So in that way, you will have segregated your duties, set up role-based access control, and given a specific subset of users only access to the data which they need to see and use on a regular basis. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at my setup and how I set up things to do role-based access control so you can see a demo of how this works. For this demo, I am going to just show you how my system is set up. And the first thing I'm going to do is log into the Spectrum Protect Plus for online services portal. And I'm going to start looking at the scan profiles that we just talked about, because that's what needs to be set up to get the data into containers. You'll see here that I have a scan profile called Finance Separated Profile. And if I click Edit, you'll see that I have defined custom rules for mailboxes, for OneDrive for Business, that look for the attribute department to be finance. And when that happens, it puts the mail back up into a container called finance mail. And for any of the other mailboxes, it just adds them to the system default container. So what I've done is I've done that one for Exchange Online, and I've done the same thing for OneDrive for Business. Now for these other object types that I'm interested in and want to pick up in my backup, what I've done is I've just defined a container for them to go into by default. So my SharePoint sites are going into default SharePoint. My groups, teams, Yammer communities are going into default group, team, Yammer, etc. Now when the scan portal runs, what you're going to find is you can click on containers and you can see which objects are going into each container. So for my default instance, I have a whole bunch of objects, mailboxes for people who are not in finance going into the default mailbox container. And in the finance mail container, as you can see, I have set up my Azure Active Directory to have these two users be in the finance department, and they are going in the finance mail. So in this way, what I'm doing is I'm taking all my specific objects, finding the object types that have finance defined on them, and I'm only interested in Mail and OneDrive, and I'm putting them in a specific container. So that's really what you need to do in order to set up role-based access control, is to have the data in specific containers that you can control. Now for the access control, there are a couple things that I want to point out to you. First of all, if I go here to user management, I have a group defined as a tenant user that is going to have access to the portal. And that group is going to be the people who I want to be able to recover finance data. So as you can see here, I've created this group called Finance Recovery Group. And if I click on Edit, you'll see that I have giving them tenant user access to all of the products in the Spectrum Protect Plus for online services. The other thing I've done is I've gone into data protection for Microsoft 365, and I'm going to account management, and for this particular application, I've also gone in and created a security group named Finance Group, gave that Finance Recovery Group that I created in Azure access to it, and I have specified that the only containers I want this group to have access to is Finance Mail and Finance OneDrive. So you see here I've checked these two services and I've set the permission scope to those containers. That's really all there is to setting it up. It's a little complicated because you have these containers to think about, and then you have a portal and then an application within a portal. And you have to have things set up right in all of those places in order for the role-based access control to be set up properly. But if you set those up, things will be good. Now, what I just want to show you is the results of this. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to sign out as the application administrator, and I'm going to go ahead and sign back in as an administrator who's in that recovery group, who for me is this Pradeep Gupta user. I'm going to go ahead and sign in as him. He's going to have a multi-factor authentication set up, and I'll go ahead and log in as Pradeep. And note that when I log in as Pradeep, at the top level of the portal, I don't have access to change any of the permissions. I'm just a portal user. So I can't really go in and make all of those changes. And when I go into the application to actually do a recovery, the only thing I can do is do a restore, run the job monitor, and see a couple of the mapping settings. Now, if I do a restore, remember I gave this group access to only Exchange and OneDrive. So that is all they're going to see. And if I go in to actually do a restore in one of these, you'll see that the only users Pradeep has access to are the users in the finance department. So that's Alex, W in my case, and Pradeep. And of course, Pradeep can restore any of the email or any of the OneDrive files for either one of these users. That's how you set up role-based access control. I hope you found this demo useful, and I look forward to seeing you in another video soon.